You know, it's interesting to me that I will hear folks on the radio who say that they are Christians and then will sometimes almost immediately follow by using filthy language and spewing out filthy communication out of their mouth. It's interesting that someone will claim to be a Christian while at the same time using vulgar language. We understand when we look at the Bible, Acts chapter 11 and verse 26, that the disciples were first called Christians at Antioch, and likewise that Jesus says his disciples are those that continue in his word. Being a Christian and using the title and the name Christian requires then one to be walking in the word of Christ. And the word of Christ is very, very plain when it comes to filthy communication. We learn, for example, in Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 29, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. How important do we consider our words? How powerful and meaningful do we consider our words? Are we actually contemplating what we are saying with the intention that the hearers might be edified and might be ministered via grace? If we're using filthy communication, then that concept is not being applied. If we're using vulgar language, then certainly we're not avoiding corrupt communication. Likewise, we learn in the Colossian letter, in Colossians chapter 3, we see in verse 8, but now ye also put off all these, anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. Why? Why are those things to be put off? Verse 5, mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth. Verse 4, when Christ who is our life shall appear. See, those things, including filthy communication, is being put away from us, is being mortified, that is utterly destroyed. Because our life, if we're going to be Christians, is to be put aside so that we might be living in Christ. And to live in Christ is to likewise speak as Christ has commanded us to speak, and to avoid speaking as Christ has forbidden us to speak. See, as a Christian, one then is a new man, not continuing to live and behave as he or she wishes, but yet calling themselves still Christian. No. A Christian is one who has died to self, obeyed the gospel, and is now, as Jesus stated, continuing in his word. And that's why Paul will go on to say in chapter 3 of Colossians and verse 10, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. See, if we're going to put on the new man, if we're going to walk after the image of Christ, then we're going to speak as Christ has commanded us to speak. And we're going to avoid speaking that which Christ has forbidden us to speak. Do you take filthy communication seriously? Do you take your words and what you say seriously? Do you contemplate what you're about to say before you say it? Or do you just call yourself a Christian, but pay no attention to the language that you use? Such is inconsistent with the Bible. We need to be mindful of the tongue and the power of it, just as James tells us in James chapter 3. And if we want to put Christ back in Christian, we need to recognize his commandments regarding our language.